Most people spend their whole life being stuck and can't figure out why they can't break through to the next level. In this video, I want to give you the simple framework of how I got to the level I'm at today. And my name is Zac Dingee. I run a solar sales company that does over $50 million a year in sales. And this framework is the exact reason why I believe I went from broke out of college with negative money in my bank account to within 7 years being worth a few $1 million. There's really only 3 types of people in this world when it comes to business. The 3 types are people who get paid for what they do, people who get paid for what they know, and people who get paid for who they are. First thing is what you do. So this is someone who probably, I frame these 3 into 3 different income levels too. What you do is probably around 100K a year in income. Now that is a loose general description. It can be much broader than that. What you do can be broken down into a few different categories depending on what you are. So that could be like sales, you're in direct door-to-door sales. In marketing, it may be you're an SEO specialist or you specialize in Google Ads. If you're in accounting, you're like the bookkeeper or you have a CPA, you work for a CPA firm. If you are in software development, you are the coder, you're the copywriter, someone actually doing the work. Could even be some kind of trade. You are an HVAC technician, you're a roofing installer. If you're real estate, you may be an agent. You may be the one selling the house. So those are like, you are doing the job every day. You are in the business. Your job is to go out and work with your hands and create something every single day. So for example, the thing I'll give you, which is what I was in, is sales. When I started in solar, I started at level 1, which is what I do with my hands. I'm at base level 1. I started out my first year, I made $99,000 in my first year. I'll never forget it because I was obviously $1,000 away from 6 figures and I wasn't happy about it. But anyway, that first year I made 100 grand, let's just say. Over the next 2 years, I increased from 100 grand to 280,000 to 380,000. And all I was doing was day to day, I was going out, knocking on doors, creating business and doing the act of my job. I wasn't teaching other people. I wasn't leading a sales team. I wasn't getting paid for what I know. I was getting paid for what I did every single day. This is the level that 90% of people on earth are at. If you are an employee, this is what you're being paid for. You are being paid for your time to do X, Y, and or Z. And so this is level 1. Now everyone has to go through this. I think even if you are a business owner, let's say you own an HVAC company, even if you own that business, if it's just you, you're the only owner, or you're the only person in the business, you probably are doing the sales and doing the install and doing the accounting and all of these things. So therefore, you are actually doing it because you have to. You don't have the money to pay someone else. So step 1, framework 1, level 1, what you do every single day. That usually is for your first 1 to 5 years in the workforce or in business. So again, general terms here, you're making roughly $100,000 a year or around there. And then you're doing this for typically 1 to 5 years, depending on your business. After you get paid for what you do, you then move up to what you know. To share my story first, I started out in sales, door to door. For my first 3 years, all I did was sell solar. I didn't teach anyone else. I didn't do anything else. I knocked on doors, sold my own systems. Was making $380,000 a year on my 3rd year, which was the highest in sales at the time. Then around year 3 to 4, I moved up into management. Now I started getting paid for what I know because I started teaching and training other people. So I went from just a sales rep to a sales manager or sales coach or whatever it may be. Other examples of this can be, you go from being a HVAC sales rep to running an HVAC company. You go from being a marketing agent or like an SEO specialist for a company to owning your own marketing business and selling marketing to other B2B businesses. So this is like that next step. You now are no longer doing the day-to-day work. You are getting paid for what you know and your skill set. And so the whole goal in your first 1 to 5 years while you're learning this is to eventually get to what you know, or to get paid for what you know and not what you do anymore. So again, this is 100K a year, 1 to 5 years. This next what you know that you get paid for is typically years 5 to potentially up to 15. And now the income average here is about $1 million a year. Now you're starting to play the leverage game. You're starting to be able to teach other people, right? So like when I was in sales myself, I might be making $5,000 per deal, and I can sell max, if I'm working my tail off, I can sell max 10 deals a month. So I can get up to $50,000 a month in revenue and commissions. When I start to get paid for what I know and I start to lead a sales team and grow a team, well now, maybe I only make $500 per deal, but I can get my team up to 100 people if I have a really, really good service and a really good way of training. Well, now I'm making $500,000 a month because I can train much better, much faster, and get people, and I can leverage my time. But I have to first be able to do before I can go teach other people. So now basically your knowledge becomes the product. How much can you know and how much can you leverage equals your income. And so in business, again, it depends on what you're doing. In my scenario, or in a lot of your scenarios, if you're in sales, you go from sales to sales leader. When you go from salesperson to sales leader, typically you can go from making a few $100,000 a year to potentially a few $1 million a year. And so as you grow, you may be in this position. A lot of you watching probably are in this, you're being paid for what you know position, because this can be, you can spend a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades in this structure. A lot of people do. If you graduate from level 1 to level 2, that's usually the most people get to, because they stop living in the business. They start living and doing stuff for the business. And then there's no really, they don't ever get to the next level, which is you're paid for who you are. That's very, very rare, very difficult, and we'll talk about how to get there. But anyway, the point is, when I went from level 1 to level 2, I was making, like I said, $380,000 a year. When I went and became a sales manager, 3 years later, I started making over $800,000 a year as a sales manager. So I doubled my income. I almost got to $1 million just as a sales manager, and I was getting paid for what I know. And for yourself, if you're trying to get to this level 2, a lot of these things are just knowing that this is the process and the journey, and then simply playing by the rule book and going on that journey. So a lot of people get stuck on level 1 because all they know is, I know how to install heat pump systems. So that's all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna install heat pump every day. I'm gonna go to work every day, and I'm gonna get paid by the hours I put in. A lot of people don't even think, well, why don't I go open my own company? Or why don't I go try to do it another way? And then once you go and open your own company, you realize, wow, because I actually know how to install HVAC, because I did it for 5 years, if I teach 4 other people how to do this, and then I start working on sales and marketing and the other parts of the business and bring in dollars, well, now I can leverage my time and start to get paid for what I know, because I was a specialist at one point and you've kind of upgraded. So once you've done that, and now you've graduated to the last in level 3, which is who you are. This one, we categorize who you are as 1 to 5 years, 100K a year. What you know is 5 to 15 years, $1 million a year. Who you are, if you're getting paid for your name and or / your brand, this is probably 10 million plus a year. And this should be the goal for everyone. People don't necessarily know your name, but if they know your company, like if Nike is known, nobody cares who the owner of Nike is, they know the brand. And now Nike can charge $140 a shirt compared to the same company that has the exact same shirt. They only can charge $50 or $60 a shirt because the branding, right? And they're known for who they are and they represent something bigger. This is the level of business where you start to see extreme profits and the entire game changes. And 99.9% of people never get to this part of business because it's so difficult, because it takes 15 years. You're not gonna start getting paid for who you are a year into your career. You gotta first create a business. You gotta be in that business for 1 to 5 years, doing every single thing day to day. Then you gotta start leveraging out your skill sets, and then you have to build out a reputation. Once you have all of that, you can get paid for who you are. And so this is why you hear people that there's a video that was surfacing on the internet a while ago that it was like a meme of Patrick Bet-David, and he had his Connect app, and he charged like $45,000 or something crazy like that for a single 15-minute call with him. People pay it left and right. Why? Because he's built up his name to become so branded and recognized as this guy being really good in business that he can go and charge that now. This is why there's these people charging $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 for keynote speeches to spend an hour somewhere talking about what they know because they built up and people now know their name. So that's the leverage you get. Once you become a personal brand or people know your business or your name, you start to be able to 10x, 20x what you can charge because you are a well-known now. You may be able to pull this off in less than 15 years, and it may not take you that long, but it's gonna take you 3 to 5 to 10 to 15 years. So whether you're in sales, whether you're in accounting, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're in real estate, whatever it is, we can do the same scenario for real estate. You start off as an agent, you make a couple $100,000 a year. Then maybe you turn into a wholesaler or an investor, and then eventually you become a branded name and a developer in real estate, and now you have 5, 10, 15, 20,000 units. People start to know your name, they know who you are, and you start to get deals flowing to you easy because you've built up that reputation. So this compounds over time. And I think if people followed this framework and knew this framework, they would have a clear, concise guideline to get to where they're going. So many people, what's really important here is so many people get the sequencing wrong. They do 6 months in sales and then all of a sudden they want to start getting paid for who they are. Or they make content for a year and then they expect to do brand deals for $30,000 a month because they think people recognize their name or their brand. And it's just not the case. And so if you know the proper sequencing, first, I'm gonna go learn that skill set and get really good at that skill set. I'm gonna go learn sales and get really good at it. I'm gonna go learn AI automation and get really good at it. I'm gonna go learn and take my bar exam, become a lawyer, and I'm gonna get really good at that. If you do that, then you move on to, okay, now I'm gonna start to leverage this and coach other people or start to try and build the business bigger and bigger. Now you're moving on to the next stage, which you will start to make more and more money. If you do that for a long enough period of time at a high level, you will start to be recognized publicly. And a lot of people who watch this channel, you probably also watch Alex Hormozi. If you watch his old videos, he got a lot of hate comments or people talking bad about him or saying this is bad advice or whatever it may be. Didn't get a lot of views, but since he's been doing this for 8 years now on content, now his videos get millions and millions of views as soon as he posts them, because when people see his face, they go, oh, this is good content. He doesn't have to try, he doesn't have to do any special hooks. The key to the game is that he's built up his reputation and people now know who he is. So this is the framework, if I had to start all over again, that I would make sure I'm focusing on and being attentive to, because it gives you ease and you realize, okay, there is steps to the game. I can't be paid for what I know until I've done something. And a lot of people, especially on social media right now, are trying to just go on and talk about their story and explain why they're special or they're important and they're the special snowflake, but they've never done anything in their life. And because of that, it comes off as inauthentic and they don't have anything to show. So to finalize this whole point, my story, like I said, from when I was in sales, I made $300,000 a year, $350,000 a year at my peak in 3 years. Then I moved to management. I went up to about $800,000 a year. Now, as the president of sales and overseeing the entire sales team, I make multiple millions of dollars a year. That's because I now get paid for who I am and what I know, and no longer for what I do anymore, because I've built it up. It took me 8 years, which still I'm not yet getting paid for who I am. I think that's going to be a couple more years of building out content, strategy, and actually having some more growth in business. But eventually, my income will be leveraged so much because of the brand I've built and the reputation I have. And so that's kind of this last part that I wouldn't say that I've mastered myself yet. So what I want to know from you is, what position are you in right now and where are you trying to get to? The thing with all of this is you don't ever have to graduate into who you are and getting paid that 10 million plus a year for your personal branding and name. You don't have to get there. Some people may only want to get to, I want to run a coaching business I want to have, $250,000 a month in income from my coaching business, have 115 clients, and work 30 hours a week, and that's it, I'm done. And that's totally fine if that's what you want. But you have to know the steps you have to take to get there and the levels you're going to. And everybody is in one of these three levels. Everybody, no matter who you are or who's watching, you either are getting paid for what you do every day, which is typically employees or the lower level of business where you're doing all of the jobs in your business still. Then you graduate and move into level 2, which is a manager role, a CEO role, a founder role, where you're now getting paid for what you know and teaching others. And then lastly is still those same roles as level 2, except you have a reputation, a brand, you've built it up, and you now have people that can pay a premium for your service because they know and you can almost guarantee success with whatever you're doing. So this is the route I took. I didn't start out as a CEO in my solar company. I started out as a sales rep, went from sales rep to regional sales manager to director to president. And I started at ground zero and I worked my way up, and it's led me to create a lot of wealth for myself and a great position for where I am at 27 years old. And for you, the way I remember this is do, know, are. First, what do you do? Second, who you know. And third is who you are. And that's how I've basically become a multimillionaire at 27 years old. So for yourself, comment below and let me know what stage of the process you're in and where you're trying to get to. And I think this is a very important framework for people to really get what they want out of life. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next video.